This is the third episode of our second season. My name is Brent. I will be your host for the evening. Joining me is Sarah and Spee. And this week we are going to be focusing on making a relatively quick move through the path, try and get through the path. We're not necessarily going to try and finish it tonight, but we are going to try and focus on moving through it and talking about our obvious or our best guesses at what the right doors are for moving through the path. Before we get going on that, though, we are going to start out with some discussion by Spee and Sarah about interesting things that happened into the abyss this week. There was a new person. There were a couple of interesting items that came up. So, Spee, go ahead and why don't you talk about that for a minute?
Good news, everybody. There's a new member on the abyss. His name is Low Moody, and he's been taking a systematic approach of trying to do light stabs at each and every room, and I think he's gone through the whole list. He's given one or two sort of nuggets of information on each room. Most of it is being posted before, but he's got a couple cool ones. We'll maybe talk about that later. Sort of brings me to the second point, which is Room 2 has an extra point by Sarah. Yay!
Congrats, Sarah!
She can explain her solution best since she was the one who came up with it.
Okay, well, I won't spend too much time on it since you can just go to the abyss and look at it there. But basically, a while ago, Vincent pointed out that the moon and star looked like the symbol for Byzantium, the city of Byzantium, which has also been known through time as Constantinople and then Istanbul. So my thought was that each of the panels and the frescoes represented an event from the history of that city. So you can read the details on the abyss, but the door 21 fresco represents Byzantium, and I have a whole thing about Hecate, which I love, but lots of people think is ridiculous. That's fine. And then there's above door 22, my feeling is that represents Emperor Constantine, and therefore Constantinople. And then above door 12, you have the Turks coming in and invading and taking over Constantinople, and they end up renaming it Istanbul. So it's basically just the history of the city in little brief snippets, and then the reason you pick door 29 is because there's all these key objects in the room, so you pick Byzantium. And White Raven, it was sort of a weird, win or point or whatever, because White Raven had a theory that was kind of similar, but not totally. He felt like all of the frescoes represented different parts of the siege of Constantinople, and that the door 21 fresco represented an escape, so that's why you would take that door. So anyway, that's something kind of interesting to look at on the abyss if you have time and are so inclined. And I just want to say about Low Moody before we move on, that he said that it was the ticking time clock that we mentioned last episode that White Raven has said, we only have X number of months left, that prompted him to take all these clues that he had worked out over time and stored and just kind of dump them out and see what happened. So I thought that was great, and if there's anyone else out there with, little gold nuggets of ideas, they should go on the abyss and just post them all so you can see them.
I think that's why White Raven did it. He was trying to rattle the cage, all the lurkers on the website. He was trying to get them out of the woodwork. He got one at least. I think Low Moody's a good addition.
Yeah, I agree. Low Moody, if you're watching, you should join us.
Yeah, come on down.
Yeah, welcome, Low Moody.
The breaking news, I got an email a couple minutes ago from none other than Thiel Crater himself, the hidden mystery, and he said he couldn't make it tonight. It's a, sort of a anticlimactic ending there. However, he gave me some clues here about who the guide is. I don't know if I'll post them here or if I'll post them on Mazecast on the website. Maybe I'll do that, and then you guys can decide for yourself. I think he'd enjoy that. I think he'd like that.
Sounds good.
He might attend for the next one. I told him to wear either Guy Fawkes mask or maybe a gorilla mask, whatever suits him best. So point the third. I actually didn't. In our pre-discussions, I didn't get the chance to see the third room. I'm sure Sarah knows though that we didn't have the point on.
Yeah, it was room 23, which Vincent actually completed after I posted my Room 2 solution. So, but because White Raven responded to his solution first, he was clue master for about like 3 hours, and then
Wow.
I know it was quite a coup.
Yeah.
Shortest clue master, I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, so Vince figured out the last item on the scroll, according to White Raven, which had to do with time based on the pictures above the doors in 23.
I think what's funny about this is, if Vince were here, he would say this, that he had said this a long damn time ago, but he just didn't think it was good enough to write on the Abyss, so he just, wrote it in the Hangout or whatever, haha, and then nothing came of it, and then I guess White Raven brought it up, so he re-brought it. I remember him talking about that before. If it wasn't the zero puzzle, which I think it is, I think it makes more sense that there's something in common with the three phrases than them meaning something different. Although I could be wrong. I don't know what Manson. Can't read his mind. Anyway, so those are the three sort of news items from Maze News.
Yeah.
And now on to weather with you, Brett.
Great. Okay, so like I was saying, we are going to, most of this episode, what we're going to try and do is walk through the path. And last week we talked a lot about the different parts of the maze, and I brought up my image of the path here. So basically our goal today is to try and get through as many of the rooms as we can, starting at the beginning and going through the path. And like I was saying, we're not going to do in-depth analysis of each room. What we're focusing on is why we came up with the correct door for the room. And we're not necessarily going to try and take too long on the room, but at the same time, if we don't get all the way through the path today, that's okay. We can take a few episodes to do this.
So I'll pull up pictures of the rooms so that.
Okay, have you got that?
Does that work for you? Is that cool?
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
That works.
Get it open here.
So actually, the first one, before we even do that, let's start talking about. I think we should start with the outside rooms really quickly, because there are one or two things on them that I think inform how you approach the maze in general, and I thought they were interesting. I didn't necessarily discover these. This was more along the lines of, as I was going over the rooms, I couldn't help but look at the clues in Into the Abyss. So specifically, I don't necessarily think we need to talk about the back cover that much. I mean, it's an interesting introduction to the guide and such, and whether or not he's giving clues or leading you astray is kind of moot, right, for this discussion. Let's start with, I guess, I took a look at the title page, and there was an interesting picture on there, but really not much to discuss, rather than maybe some of the items on there had to do, yes? Had to do with, other things in the maze. And really quickly, the one that I really did want to go over was on the directions page. If you can pull that one up. So the cool thing about that, the directions page, is that aside from giving you the principal goals of what you're trying to do, the main two goals of finding your way to room 45 and back in 16 steps, and then trying to figure out what the puzzle of the maze is. On that page, if you look on the pillars, there are hands that are pointing in directions, and 3 of them are a right hand that are pointing, and the one that is pointing to the next page is the left hand. And since it's outside of the maze, it can be taken as a clue for how you should approach the maze, or one way that you can effectively or look at how you can solve some of the puzzles in the maze. And Into the Abyss, Vincent and White Raven both noted that due to the hand that's different from the others, it's pointing the correct way. So I think I heard someone calling it the odd man in principle, or it's basically a principle where if you find a bunch of clues for all but one room, then there's a good chance the room that you're supposed to go, the correct answer is going to be the room that has either no clues or one clue that's dramatically different from the others.
Never liked that, odd man in, because it could also just as easily be the odd man out and still clue to the right room.
Right. Yeah, either way.
Anyway, continue.
The point is, it's like the Sesame Street thing where, which of these things is not like the others. If you find that thing or that room number, then there's a good chance that's probably the right room. There's definitely several rooms that use that principle, or at least from what I've found. Another thing that I'll note before I go to room 1, we'll just skip the prologue. That's mainly the prologue. As far as what I've read and picked up, it really does help with. I think it'll be interesting when we discover what the riddle for the guide is. I think that'll really be interesting to compare that to the prologue. But the main clue I wanted to pick up was from the directions page. I did want to point out that how we're going to attack each room is, since I'm the new guy here. We're going to start each room with kind of, and I haven't really shared any of my opinions on well, I guess I've done a few on my blog, but I haven't shared a lot of my opinions on what I've found or what I think, how I think you get to the right answers. So we're going to start off by me kind of telling off the things I've found or think I've found, and then what we can, Sarah and Speak can help fill in the gaps and in some cases clue me in completely as to why it is that the right door is the right door. So let's start with room 1. Why don't we go there? So in room 1, so this is one where I had looked at, I'd actually watched probably half a dozen Mazecast episodes before I decided to blog and before I decided to, take a deep breath and decide, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to jump in. So I already knew going into it that room 26 was the right room. And I guess I've kind of done that for all the rest of the rooms now that I've figured out the maze. I know what the right answers are. Now it's just a matter of figuring out why that's the right answer. For me, when I was looking at it by myself before I looked at any of the clues, the things that I found that kind of made it work were it's kind of, for me, it's the odd man in or the odd man out principle, the other one principle, and the fact that story, tale, and yarn all are alluded to in the text. If you read the text, it actually does say the word story in there, and then tale and yarn both have anagrams that spell them out. I think there's late and nary, and so if you look at those, so those three are in the text, but I didn't find anything in there, an anagram or anything for fable. So that was my main, that's why room 26 is the right answer. And there are a lot of interesting things going on in room 1, and with a lot of these rooms, I mean, the way the whole maze is set up is there are a lot of cool things to think about and look at. So let me open it up. What do you guys think? I mean, was I pretty correct on that, or was I missing? I mean, was I off, or?
Totally bang on.
Should we go back to one for just a second?
Sure.
We just go back to one visually. So, Brent, you came up with that on your own, or this was one that you had already seen? Like you already knew what the solution was? Oh,
well, I knew that room 26 was the right room. I didn't know why. I remember that you guys had talked something about like apple, bottle, cup, and drum, A, B, C, and D, and if you did them backwards, there was something going on with that, but I didn't really understand why that 26 was the right one from the discussion. I actually did figure out the odd man out. Oh, I did hear about the odd man out principle, so I didn't have to figure that out on my own either. But I did. That was basically I came up with why room 26 is the right one on myself. By myself.
Cool. It might be interesting to talk about stuff that isn't really explained yet in this room.
Sure. Like I said, let's not. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but definitely, what other cool things, especially anything that's gonna, like some of the rooms, there might be 2 or 3 things that back up the right door answer or whatever. So it'd be cool to cover those.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff here which has been talked about in the other Mazecast, and it's on the Abyss now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff in the rolled up paper which we don't need to go into because it's elsewhere. But I think one thing that is not really part of a solution is the sunlight. Is that right, Alex?
Yeah, it's something that's being mulled over in terms of the sunlight shining on the 41's handle.
Yeah.
Being a bad omen because 41 is the worst choice you could take.
Right.
The sun being bad, but then again, like it's not consistent. Sun is good in some cases. In the Great Hall in room 4, it's bad. If you go through the sun door, it's pretty bad. I think it takes you to the trap. But light and sun are 2 different things in the maze in the sense that light is generally trusted, whereas sun is not, except in room 23. So again, you have exceptions, but I digress.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, another thing that I kind of mentioned in this room that I thought might have helped rule out some of the rooms as being the wrong answer, and this is, I don't know how, as with a lot of things in Maze, I don't know if this has anything to do with anything, but on the very front of the book, on the front of the door, there's a red herring. It's actually one of the places where there's color. So the red herring is over the mantle, and then on the page right before room 1, it says the next page, and then if you look in room 1, the shadow of the mantle falls right over the doors for rooms 41 and 21. So I kind of read that to mean rooms or doors number 41 and 21 could be a red herring.
Oh, my mistake. I said before the 41 is the worst door. I meant 21. So that invalidates the whole sun thing, but it does touch, the sun does touch 21, so I was sort of right.
Right, yeah. Yeah, so the way, if you look at where the mantle, the shadow for the mantle, where both the red herring and the next page text are, the shadow for where those would be actually fall right over doors 41 and 21. And like I said, I don't know if that is on or off or whatever. It was an interesting.
This has actually been discussed in the Abyss recently because so White Raven has a theory. He has a theory. I'm not sure if it was confirmed or not that that whole juxtaposition of the red herring and the next page is a signal for clues that are often red herring in the maze. So. Right. The idea that repeated objects between 2 rooms, like when 2 rooms seem to be connected somehow, that's a red herring. That's like if you find something in one room and also in another room, that's a red herring, unless it is apparently the guide riddle, which we haven't figured out yet. But
right.
So the only way to really figure out reliably what door you should take in a room is to solve it within the room, which actually kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
You're actually someone going through the room. Often, if you can't really go and try and figure out whether there's a connection because you may not be able to get back.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, digression.
No. It was totally on. I'm trying to figure out how to turn off screen share here because I'm realize my beautiful face isn't showing up. So let's go to page 26 next. So on 26, because that's the next step on the path. That's the correct way to go. So in this one, this was really the first room that I went into where I didn't know what the answer was. This is before I'd solved the path. when I started looking at this room, so I didn't know exactly which one it was. And I I actually got kind of frustrated because I couldn't find any clues. I mean, there's a lot of things that it seems like I'm obviously alluding to something here. Like, I couldn't figure out at all what the devil popping out of the trapdoors meant, although, like the theme of something opening is a pretty strong theme. I figured there's got to be something there. The theme of the devil is a very strong theme. The fact that not only is he really there, but there's a mannequin of him, above. I was getting, like, the only things that I came out with were the devil is pointing to both rooms 38 and 36. So once again, I used the odd man out principle to determine that room 30 was the logical answer, even though looking at this room, there's all kinds of things that in the back of my mind just screamed that there's got to be more here. You're just, why aren't you getting this, So anyway, that's what I came up with. The devils were pointing to 36 and 38, so room 30, and you came in through room 1, so room 30 is the correct answer. What do you think, guys?
Yeah. The other, I don't know if this is widely accepted, but I think a lot of people came to the same conclusion at around the same time independently, mainly John Bailey's. Well, maybe not John Bailey, maybe later than that. Anyway, that theory is that there are 3 real devils and 1 false one, so that's 3 and 0. You could also read the mouths of the devils as O's. All of them have O mouths, and also the shape of the top of the bell. I'm just going really fast here. Like, there's more.
No, that's how we want to do it.
Well,
very cool.
And this room has a really huge and elaborate metaphor attached to it that Gentile mentioned on the Abyss, and this was what White Raven had already come up with for the room as well, and it has to do with, I can't really remember, but it has something to do with the discovery of a moon of Saturn.
It was a 3-state rocket that they set off, and this is the one that found the moon of Saturn or whatever. But see, I still challenge that to this day. I've always challenged it because I cannot see the connection between that metaphor and Saturn indicating 30, or even the moon indicating 30. You know what I mean? It's like the disconnect is so big that it just...
But you know what? I don't think that metaphor is meant to indicate the door. It's meant to indicate Atlas, because the name of the moon is Atlas.
No. Atlas is indicated a lot easier. You have the salt plus...
Yeah,
A.
that's there. Of course, yeah, that's there too.
Oh, okay, cool.
Your idea was that was another way of reinforcing the Atlas interpretation.
Oh, because the moon's name was Atlas.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah, so it wasn't even a door indication at all. It was just something about the riddle of the path.
No, but why do you...
what's the deal with the S on the salt?
So you anagram salt with the A, the word salt with A, and you get Atlas. And this is part of the riddle of the path.
Okay, so the S was just to show you that it was a salt shaker versus like a pepper shaker or something.
Right.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and for me, the only other takeaway, or the only other thing that I kept in mind was that astrological things were probably going to be a theme in the maze, and that maybe when we look more to clues that have to do with across room puzzles or things like that, maybe astrological phenomena have more to do with that. So let's go to page 30, which is the next room.
No, that's 30. 25, 30. Oh, I can't see it with this crazy reader. 26, 27. 30, there we go.
Okay, cool. So the clues that I got for this room were mainly the word no. I mean, once again, it's kind of a this door is not like the others. The word no is straddling. If you flip the page over, the word no is straddling the door for 34, and then on the sign that has the arrow pointing to 5, it says no on it, and you can build out the words 5 and 1-5 all on that little note there. So that's what. So basically, I had the word no associated with rooms 5 and 15, and let's see.
And 34 by
and 34, right? Yeah. So that was my kind of this.
Explain to me your idea for 15. How no is with 15.
Sure. So because on that page on the little sheet there that has 0, it says no 5, but you can also spell out use the no and Eve to spell out 1, and the remaining letters on there are you can spell out 5, so 1-5. Yeah. So I took that sign to actually represent both of the doors, like no for 5 and also no for 1 and 5 or 15. So that's what I came up with. This was one of the puzzles that I saw the Mazecast episode about, and then forgot most of the clues they were talking about. I think the only other thing I remember when I saw the Mazecast episode was that the letter F was supposedly had something to do with like the number of words, and the text was like there were 7 of those, and F is the 6th alphabet, 6 letters. So if you do 6 times 7, it's 42 or something weird like that. But those are the only things I know. But the main clue for me was the no. No was associated with 34, 5, and 15, so 42 had to be the right answer. What do you guys think?
I love it, man. Well, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and once again, I do want to clarify that, like, this was not, like, I did not come up with these answers in, I didn't just stare there and, oh, this was obviously it. I mean, the whole thought process of solving these clues has to do with taking a look at the room, really studying it, and then letting your brain just kind of do its thing. I mean, it's almost like your brain figures it out, and it takes time to make connections between the clues that you have there and possible answers. So, I mean, all these clues that I'm giving you are things that I came up with over the last few months. Looking at the book probably a few hours a week, and pondering what the clues could be, and then I just gathered them here to summarize them. So, yeah. So this is different.
I've heard the flipping over to get no before. That's cool. I mean, those letters are part of the riddle of the path.
Ah, cool.
So that's sort of their primary use, but I don't think I've heard that idea before of flipping them to get no for room 3.
Oh, so no one has turned the page over and saw that it said no?
Oh, yeah.
I actually thought that was like one of the first things that you would notice from the room.
Yeah, because it's lowercase.
Well, and it's interesting. Like usually, I think what people might say is that, well, what's the reason for flipping it over? Because usually in rooms where you flip it over, there's some reason to do it.
Right, like they give you a clue that you should flip it over.
Right, like there's an hourglass in room 29 that tells you to flip it, stuff like that. Yeah, that's interesting though. I've never heard that one. That's good.
Cool. Okay, so the next room is page 42. And this was the first one where I kind of felt stumped. Like, I really did not... Like, this one, for me, it was a tie between, it could have been room 22 or room 4 could have been the right answer. This is really the first one where when I finished the path of the maze, I realized that 4 is the right answer because I solved that. And the reason why 22 and 4 both could have been options for me was due to there are a lot of pairs in the room. And the thing that clued me off was the picture of the pair on one of the doors. So there's 4 doors, and each of the doors, 4 doors that aren't 30, and each of the doors have a pair on them. There's a pair of scissors, a pair of shakers, a pair of dice, and then there's several other pairs in the room. A lot of them have to do with feet. If you look at the image above rooms 25 and 37, there's pairs of feet, and the shoes, there's pairs of shoes. Now, not only are there pairs, but in several confluences here, at least 3 of them, there are 2 pairs. So that's why I think room 4 is the right answer, is because you have the theme of 2 pairs, which is a total of 4, which is also, it could have been 22, so there's got to be more. But you've got, and what I mean by 2 pairs is in the image, there's 2 pairs of bare feet or whatever monster feet that is out there. There's 2 pairs of boots on the floor next to each other. I mean, there's a lone one, but I'm excluding that. The number 22 itself is a pair of 2s. So, yeah. So anyway, that's kind of my answer. So 2 pairs is equal to 4. So that's why I think 4 is the right answer.
What about 25 with a single pair?
What about it?
It's not a pair of things. It's not. Doesn't have 2.
No, but it is a pair.
Okay.
Yeah, like it's not 2, but that's okay because it's a pair. You can as with playing around with words in the puzzle, you can replace PEAR with PAIR and it counts. There's pairs on each door.
Yeah, that's pretty similar to what sort of the official or accepted or whatever answer is. Well, I mean, there's a lot of things in this room, but the main thing is that you notice that all the things on the doors are pairs except for the salt and pepper shaker, which is not actually a pair.
Oh.
It's a set.
Doll.
Not everyone loves that solution, but...
Yeah, I did consider it a pair because I considered it a pair of shakers. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, cool. So other people use the odd man out principle where there's pairs on every door except for the salt and pepper door because that's not a pair, and that's the right answer. Fair enough. Like I'll buy that.
I think the red herring is the actual pair because it's the one. It's just by itself. So if you don't consider like calling them pairs, then you might pick 25 because it's the only one with a single.
Right.
Pair.
Right. Yeah. Instead of yeah.
Metaphor.
Cool. Okay, so let's move on to room 4, and I will mention again as we're moving over that once again there are a lot of other things going on in these rooms, and in season 1 there was a lot of discussion about most of these rooms, so we're kind of just rushing through to go through the path and figure out what the right doors are. This one, I was actually, so I knew, I'd figured out now that there were actually 2 exits from the maze, or from this room, that were the correct answers. And, this one stymied me for a while, too. I mean, I was counting stars and trying to figure out what the significance of the hands were that were holding the lights, and, the dowels on the left, and the maze image on the right, and all the stuff. There's a lot of cool stuff in this room to consider, and I really do feel like I've just scratched the surface with this room, but I was really proud when I did, and this only happened like a week or 2 ago. I was sitting here staring. I knew that 29 and 5 or 29 and 15 were the right doors, but I mean, how on earth are you supposed to know that those, out of all these doors, are the right ones? And not only that, this is the only room in the maze where you not only do you have to figure out what the right doors are, but you have to figure out what order they go in. And I actually did see, I'm very proud, I did see that I was looking at the split wood, the chopped wood, and I did notice that the axe covers rooms 29 and 15, and that so literally the split in the wood, the split is on rooms 29 and 15, and the head of the axe is 29, and the tail of the axe is 15. And I almost cheered and stood up when yes, that's it.
Yeah, they mentioned coins and flipping coins in the text.
Yeah. So, yep. So, and this one, I did want to talk a little bit more about the other stuff in the room, just because I mean, I read what the Into the was on Into the Abyss, and I still don't understand. Like the dowels, I guess that's my big question. Like the dowels are supposed to represent going in and out, but somehow you're supposed to determine that you go in first and out second or something like that. I didn't really understand how you come to that conclusion. You guys know anything about that?
That's one that I do not really get. So,
Yeah. I did like I did like the fact that the hands do have something to do with the room. All the lights are off except for the ones at the very end of the hall. So if say the sun is a man and those are the sun's a person or a creature and those are his hands and he's holding the lit lights. The ones on the right are the correct rooms are the ones on the side of his right hand. So they're the right rooms anyway. You come up with some weird connections when you're going through the maze, but that's how this puzzle's set up. So whether it's right or wrong, it's kind of cool.
I thought it was interesting how you said the heads and tails thing. I hadn't really considered that before. How the other objects in the room sort of might have heads and tails too, like the nails have heads, and I guess by default they would have tails. You wouldn't call them that, but they do certainly have heads. Matches have heads.
Right.
I guess you could have the head of the candle. I would call it the wick, but
right.
It might be called the head of the hammer or gavel.
Right.
I don't really do that. I don't know how that would help us. There would be other theories about these objects, but this is a new one to me. I think maybe it's been mentioned before, but it's so old that I feel like it's new.
Right. Let's see. Oh, the last thing I want to mention before we move on is I was interested that. I don't know. I had this thing in my head where maybe it's because it's one of the first things I really looked at. But on the title page, in the maze, there are some objects on there. There's a map. There's a hammer and I think a chisel and a compass. And there's it looks like a key, a mold for a key. And a couple of those items, it looked like they were on here. There was the map. A vellum map, which is up on the right under door 43, and the hammer was here, and there's one also there. I think there might be a candlestick, I'm not sure. So there were two or three items that kind of matched up with the title page, which probably means nothing, but it's all about trying to figure out what the connections are in the maze. So. With that, who knows, let's go on to room 29, which is the next correct door in the path. And
I don't think anyone has really figured anything out about the title page yet.
Yeah, and there might not really be anything. I mean, who knows? It's just a collection of objects, so...
I think there's got to be something there. It's too
Can we please skip this one?
It would be cool if there was something there, yeah, for sure.
Please, let's skip this one.
Oh, you really do? Now, this is the one where you guys... it was like in fact, this was one of the last ones you did, and I actually did see it when you guys were recording it, and I was really confused because... It was a joke. I had to talk to Vince. I'm like, what's going on here? And he had to say, it was a joke, Brent. I was like, oh, okay. Because you guys talked about other stuff for half an hour, and then you covered the page in 15 seconds. Yeah. There it is. That's it.
Vincent just sort of went, oh, okay, there it is.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
So, Speed, do you really not want to talk about this one because it's such a sacred cow, or...
No, it's not a sacred cow at all. It's the filthiest whore there is.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about it because I am excited about three things in here. First of all, okay, huge spoiler. If you really don't want to, this is one of the coolest things to figure out on your own in the maze. So if you don't want to know what it is, go away right now because we're totally spoiling it. So as I mentioned, and I didn't really explain it very well in the last episode, there's a problem if you go from room 45 and try and work your way back to room 1. There's a problem there's a small cluster of rooms around 45, one of which is room 17, that there are no doors that go to that area of rooms. So you literally cannot get to page 45 just based on obvious door numbers in the maze. And this was after I had already made all the connections. I could literally tell, because I had linked up all the rooms, that there were no connections to room 17. So I had that clued me in. Oh, that clued me in that there was, first of all, there had to be some secret puzzle. And the reason why I thought, and this is what I didn't really explain last week, the reason why I thought room 17 was the place where the puzzle would be was because another thing that I could determine by making all the connections from the rooms, I also looked at how many doors were in each room, and doors that don't have numbers over them or connected to them are usually considered them to be doors from other rooms that are one way from another room. So it's cool, you still have the entrance from the other room. And there were a couple of rooms for a while that I couldn't figure out that had these loose doors where there was an obvious door in the room, but there was no room that linked to it, or that it was like an extra door. And room 17 was one of these rooms. There are more doors in the room than there are other rooms that go to room 17. So I was like, aha, I will start with seeing if I can find somewhere that links to room 17. And like I said last week, I basically lucked into it, but ended up on this page, like the second or third page, I was looking for clues. And once I arrived on this page, then it didn't take me too long to flip the book over. And, I mean, even looking at it, I didn't really make a connection that I just thought that the candelabra, the big one in the middle of the page, was just, I mean, that was cool. I mean, obviously there's a 17 there, but I was thinking that must relate to some puzzle in the room or some bigger puzzle, multi-room puzzle or something. But actually, if you flip it over and look at it, which obviously we can't really do on the computer here, but or easily, but if you look at it, it's actually sitting, in my mind, it's sitting on a door. Like the top of the table there is a door, and the number 17 is on the door, and a couple of other things I wanted to note, or that I kind of think are interesting before I open it up to Steve and Sarah, are first of all the candles that are on the door that are laying on the door. There's 8 candles. 1 of them are lit and 7 of them are not. So that's a 1 and a 7. So that also could allude to room 17. The guy who's in the text, there's a big hullabaloo about the guy holding the sign and how he's really trying to give you a clue. I mean, if you read the text portion of this book, of this page, I mean, it's fairly obvious that there is something interesting going on in this room just from reading the text, and they point to the sign that he has. But I think that actually the clue that he is giving is, they call it the staff that he's holding. If you look at the staff that he has, they call it a staff. I actually look at those wooden shapes. There's 3 more of them by the door with the spatula above it. I actually think those are cues, like a pool cue, because and this was cool too when I saw it. Although if you on first glance or most glances, if you look at what he's holding, it does look like a staff because it has a head on it and everything. If you look closely, and especially if you flip the page over, that actually is a door handle. It matches the other door handles in the room, and it's like a couple of things in this room. It's not connected to what he's holding. So I think he is holding a cue that is cueing you to, and it's pointing down. So that's like your big cue that you have to turn the page down or turn it over to be able to see some of the other clues in the room. So 17 is the correct way, and I've talked enough about this. So what do you guys think? Am I totally nuts, or what's going on?
That's awesome. I mean, I think the main thing about his staff is that you notice those other ones and that they don't have a head, and then you look at his again and realize that's actually a doorknob.
Right.
So that lets you realize that And the main thing is sort of the stuff over the doors are all things that could be turned over. So you have a spatula that you you have a key that turns. You have salt and pepper shakers that you turn. You have a leaf, a falling leaf or a leaf that turns. You would say, and the bottle, obviously, you have to upend it if you want anything out of it.
Right.
So that's, a question I have always had about this room is that just a door that has sort of been taken off and it's being disguised as a table, and you actually have to go behind the guy in the curtain, or do you actually somehow go open up that door and go through? Like, are there maybe some stairs down there? What do you think?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, if I had to guess, I would say it's exactly what you were just saying. It looks like this goofy character in the corner probably took the door off and turned a table out of it, and then wanted to hide what he did by covering it up, and completely distract you by standing in front of it or whatever. So that would be my guess.
Yeah, and it's a kind of a cool room because it's really the only room where you have other human beings interacting with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's the musicians, but they have masks and they don't
Right.
talk to you. I mean, they're just playing their music. So it's kind of cool. It definitely tells you there's something weird about the room. There's a lot of weird things about it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's okay for us to talk about this room because we did have that the joke episode. This room
Right.
where we just talked about random things for half an hour.
Yeah, and we can talk a lot more about it on another episode too. But I do like the hourglass too. You can flip the hourglass over. So
exactly, yeah.
I kind of took the hourglass to be, if you flip the room over, the hourglass is in basically the same location that the other symbols are, or the other pictures are above their door. Well,
Right.
I took it as the hourglass is the picture that's supposed to be above door 17. So.
Right.
Anyway, do you have anything to add, Spee, or really quickly, or?
No, it's good.
Okay, cool. So let's go to room 17. How are we doing? You know what? Actually, we're about done. I think this is a good stopping point. So next time we will pick up with room 17. And yeah, did you guys have anything else you wanted to add before we wrap it up here? Any closing comments or?
Yeah, no, that's cool. It's cool that you had that eureka moment. That you had that, like, wow moment where you figured it out. That's, I don't know, this is like the biggest opportunity for that in the maze. I mean, until we find the side puzzle.
Yeah. Once you figure it out, it is a lot of fun, and you do feel pretty smart, like, when you do come up with that. It's pretty cool. And honestly, it's not really one of the harder puzzles in the maze. I mean, obviously, we've been working on this thing for, 3 decades now, and there's still a lot of stuff unsolved, so obviously there's some really hard puzzles in here, but it's still really cool. The fact that he even put this in there is one reason why I like the creativity that he put into the maze. It's cool. Once again, the proudest, although this was fun, I still think I was most proud finding that axe and figuring out that, aha, yes, the split and room 4 and the head and the tail tell you which ones go. I was ecstatic about that. So anyway, you got anything to say, Spee?
No.
Okay, well, I think we will wrap it up. We will catch you next time. I guess next Thursday we will continue through the path and see how far we can get.
See ya.
Have a good week.
Bye, everybody.